instead of paying so much attention to the body-mind, thinking and musing and wondering and thinking about things that actually, it seems more appropriate to be paying attention to the world like a blind man, sensing, just becoming aware of the things that you said. It's not nothing. It's actually huge. I mean, it's not. It's more than not nothing. It's everything. It's the basis of everything.
Yeah, I mean, relating to body, mind, and events in one life and all, it's actually relating to abstractions. Yeah. Because those things don't actually exist in the way that the mind thinks that they exist. And so, relating to what experience actually consists of, which turns out to be radically different than what the mind thinks of it as consisting of, reveals a fundamentally, a radically different state of affairs than the state of affairs implied by the way the frame of, conceptual frame of reference holds things as being. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, until that becomes developed, or we're really in touch with it, we're sort of dependent in a way on our senses, or just a kind of sensing that is...
Sure, but there's nothing wrong with the senses. The problem is not the senses. The problem is mental interpretation of the senses.
Okay.
Because again, the senses are, called direct energy engagement, direct energy presence. It's the interpretation that is the problem. But yeah, I mean, like I recommend, the easiest way to progress in all this is go to find some area in your experience where you have minimal interpretation about what's going on there, and be with that. Experience that, feel what that feels like. Just familiarize yourself with what that is like. And you will discover what naked experience is.
It seems to me the closest I can get to describing that is love. I have no idea what love is, and yet I feel it. I feel it all the time. And but I can't describe it. It's the same sort of situation.
Sure. The trick is to be with like in the case of love, to be with the experience directly rather than in the context of in relation to something that you're interpreting as being there. Of course, which is the challenge, the potential challenge.
But that's like a feeling. That seems like a feeling.
Sure, whatever. Everything is a feeling. I mean, all experience is essentially felt.
I was really, grappling with I'm this the raw energy. To me, when I say raw energy, what I'm is there's power, but there's no power. And I feel like there's a division. It's not, there's that, and then there's other experience that I have. And in playing with it, I can.
And what's the other experience like? I'm trying to see what your division is.
Yeah. Sorry, this is really difficult to speak. Well, it's mostly, I mean, it's things that I would have a certain definition to.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a little different. I mean, when I'm looking at Jenny's hair, I can get pretty abstract with it. I don't have to do whatever, but it's still different than what I'm calling raw energy, what my experience is of this thing. I just...
No, I follow what you're saying.
Okay, great. Please speak to that, because I feel like I'm doing that, an either or.
Well, you are doing an either or, but that's not important. The important point is to take advantage of the raw energy, so to speak, where you find it, and familiarize yourself with it. And the more familiar you become with that, the more you discover how ubiquitous it is and how it's not actually distinct from anything else. In fact, all experience is made of the same stuff.
I guess, yeah. So I was in the shower today, and I was playing with this, trying to look at that inspiration. And so I was looking at the tile. Almost any time, if I stop, I can experience that. But still, if it's about it just doesn't seem connected, or
Well, it's not connected.
Okay, great. So talk to me more about that.
There is nothing is connected to anything. Nothing is connected. Nothing makes any sense. Everything is, you can think of it as chaotic or... No, nothing is connected. It's not like you're finding something. It's more like finding an actuality which is not related to anything else other than itself.
Yeah, well, it's always there. I mean, it's always there. So
Sure.
It's there, but...
Yeah, exactly. It's always here, and you can't go any farther than that. But everything collapses into that condition. Everything is always here, but you can't make anything of it. You can't build anything. I mean, of course, we're experts at pretending to do just that with all of our, frame of reference and interpretation and so on and so forth. Pretend to make sense of experience, but it's all bravado. I mean, it's not like we actually do. We just sort of are expert at not noticing how inadequate our interpretive frameworks actually are.
And I guess we still have to think that if we were talking about that there's more solidity or something to, when I look at a textural sort of thing,
Sure.
or whatever.
Right. Sure, that's fine, but what is solidity made out of?
Okay.
What is solidity? It's not that it's not solid, but what is solidity? Solidity is what? I mean, find some solidity and I'll get a little pebble and just squeeze it. And what is it? What is it that you're calling solidity? It's something, it's present, it's here, but what exactly is it? How does it work? How is it doing that? What's it made of? And you won't be able to answer any of those questions, And even that it is solidity, other than sort of this meaningless sound, solid, that you're applying to this experience, which is in no way related to anything other than the fact of its own existence, its own presence experientially. Right? So it's, what you're calling abstract, it's the fact that everything is abstract, or rather, more to the point, everything is concrete. And what we think of as concrete is actually abstract. Everything turns inside out, turns completely backwards. But the trick is, don't get ahead of yourself with, trying to pull it all together or compare raw energies, however you're finding it, and anything you're contrasting it with, and all that. The trick is just let yourself be with what you feel like the raw energy is. That's all. Just let yourself be with that. Just feel it. Don't try to fit it into some schema or anything. Just feel it. feel it like you're trying to become an expert in it, like you're trying to write a book about it or something. You sort of feel it, and you'll drift off and you'll start thinking about it. Oh, that's fine, just let it go, and then sooner or later just come back and feel it. And that's the trick, is just to feel it. Don't because wanting to make sense of it, you immediately get catapulted back into the world of imagination, the world of interpretation.
I guess I get tripped up. I'm thinking tripped up a little bit because experientially, I have this thing where it's different experientially.
In what sense is it different? I mean, all experience is different experientially.
Right.
Sound is different than vision. Vision is different than a dream. A dream is different than a thought. A thought is different than an echo of a thought. Whatever that is, right? I mean, experience presents itself with just endless, differences of texture, differences of whatever. And the point is to discover that there's no hard line where on one side of the line it's one way and on the other side of the line it's another way. Anywhere you look, it's another way. There's just nothing but another ways. Endless other ways, endless dimensions of different experiential difference, qualitative difference. Call it experience. Call it the texture of experience is absolutely different, across the board. And there's no hierarchy to it. It's not like it's bifurcated where on one side it's a certain way and on the other side it's another way, and everything that's there sort of groups. It's not like that at all. Everything is just endlessly different. I mean, like vision, in a brightly lit room, vision is very relatively clear and delineated and so on. But you go into a dimly lit room or a room with no light, and what's vision then? Or you close your eyes, what's vision then? Or you go to sleep, what's vision then? And so on and so forth. So what you're saying is really good, but you're getting a little ahead of yourself trying to pull it into something, trying to make sense of it, or trying to pull it into something, or trying to incorporate it in some way of doing something with it.
Yeah, I figured that's how I'm getting tripped up. I mean,
Yeah. Just play with it like you're listening to music you really like or something. Or for that matter, music you really don't like. Doesn't matter. Just sort of trip on it. Just be with it like, well, oh yeah. Oh. And then that's all. You don't need to do anything else with it. You don't need to then compare that to anything else, then anything. No processing is involved. Just letting yourself be with that presence in a way that doesn't make any sense and yet is actual. And just be with that. Just be with that. And don't try and cling to it. Don't try and stay there or anything. Just sort of go to it, be with it when it's there, and then when you drift off into something else, just like a it's not a matter for writing a philosophy. It's sort of the opposite of that, in fact. It's not a matter for writing philosophy or finding out the way things make sense together. It's rather finding out the way nothing makes any sense whatsoever.
And yet it's real.
It seems to me that this getting ahead of yourself is a natural human reaction.
Oh, absolutely. It certainly
And
is.
that process is what gets you ahead.
It's what gets you ahead, and it's also what causes all the trouble. Because
That's what causes all the trouble. But if you don't go to that trouble, you're not going to get ahead. I think. I mean, I haven't really thought that out. It just seems to me that the human condition is to always want to be ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The seeker's condition.
Well, it's not just a seeker's condition. It's a condition of normal human functioning.
Yeah.
But the problem with normal human functioning is that it's the problem in spiritual terms. And the solution is discovering that whole mode is very artificial and exists in a context which is drastically other than that, which we already intrinsically are.
But isn't that really just spanda and all of that?
Of course it is.
Rising?
Of course it is.
So to personalize it as something that I do or that humans do even,
Sure.
It's just like extras.
Absolutely. It certainly is. But coming to see that is another thing.
I mean, that's it's coming to see that is sort of just hanging out with it, like you're saying.
Right. Exactly.
I like
Yeah. Hanging out with it is coming to see it. Yeah. Exactly. And that's all we're recommending. That's all we're selling here. That's all we're giving away. But no, very much exactly so. I mean, this condition, there's no opposite of the actual transcendental condition. Everything whatsoever, including the modes that it gets itself into trouble with in terms of, so-called spiritual ignorance and so on and so forth, is actually the transcendental condition. It's tripping over its own transcendentality and manufacturing samsara out of nothing. And yet it can notice that it has done that and that there is no actual samsara, and all of a sudden there's no longer a problem.
Ready for the samsara maker. But it seems like that's the kind of grace of the thing, is the sense of just it's not like an either or. It's not like being taken with or doing something. Those aren't the opposites either. I don't. It doesn't feel like they're sort of the same thing, felt as however they come up. So it's kind of like. So the whole question around, I think, effort and doing things just is nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's a misunderstanding if it seems to be anything. Nothing is anything other than, as you qualified it, spanda, or as you can call it the transcendental and so on. There are no sub-activities, there are no sub-doers of sub-activities, there are no sub-systems that are doing something. Even though it can be interpreted as if that was the case. But there's only one thing, and it's doing itself in one way. Absolutely inclusive, absolutely comprehensive. Mind you, it's an exceedingly subtle thing, and it's doing itself in an exceedingly subtle way.
More and more, that's to me what feels like what a body feels like is just some kind of a subtle quality, a subtle drifting into. So not so much anything, but just and it's not like going somewhere. It's like almost like raining or something.
Well, it's fascinating how the focus of attention in this spontaneously drifts in and out of these various perspectives, sort of reifying them more or less, and then drifting out into other things, and it's constantly dynamic. And, embodiment can sort of come to the fore or recede, and then just to qualify any one relative perspective arbitrarily. But they're all just perspectives, they're sort of virtual or apparent perspectives that aren't actually anything. They aren't actually coherences. They sort of achieve a semi-virtual coherence by virtue of focus of attention. A perspective seems to show up or seems to have a certain degree of maybe internal coherence. There can maybe seem to be a certain way, But then the focus drifts in and out of that, and
Right. And even what we call attraction is in that same place.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's, of course, what's attracting what, I would say, but in fact, none of these things seem to have any ends to their sentences. There's no subject or no object. It's just
no, nothing ever resolves, nothing ever settles into an actual chain of events or an actual, functioning with an actual goal or anything like that. They're all just sort of virtual, implied, possible.
Hey, Peter, I know, like, for instance, I haven't never done yoga or anything, but I know that there are certain things like breath or muscular control and everything. My question is there, how does, noticing, or why does it affect certain parts of my body? My breathing, for instance, can get a little bit different.
Well, the way this language is very imprecise, and I think if I can think of a better way to put it. Just to say, well, I'll just say it anyway, even though it's imprecise. The way that you sit in your energy changes the way everything works. And so if you're sitting in an interpretive framework in your energy, then that can have a relative tightening up effect, for example.
Like sitting at your computer.
Sitting at your computer or anticipating outcomes or worrying or all these kinds of things, can create all sorts of, virtual sort of stresses that can show up in various levels of the experience. It can show up in terms, sort of physical aspects, or the energy, the metabolism, all these different kinds of things can all sort of resonate in that mode. But again, when you go, and the noticing is a mode spontaneously of releasing. And so in that releasing, then you're not sitting with your energy at any kind of contraction. You're sitting with your energy as a letting go, as a flow. And so again, the whole way that your energy system is functioning, so to speak, will tend to resonate more with that sort of a mode of flow. And so it can, symptomatically, that can seem to
it's sort of hard
change.
to tell, though, which comes first. It sort
It-
of happens.
It's not like
I don't do a lot of it.
it's not like one thing causes another, but it's just a whole. It's a mode that comes together. Noticing is a mode that is open, multidimensional flow, and being relating to reality in terms of interpretive framework is a mode that is inherently a kind of a denial, a kind of a trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It's all this sort of it's a inherently turbulent or frictional
Yeah.
way of sitting in your
That can
energy.
be really uncomfortable. I mean, I
Yeah,
just,
of course
when
you can.
I take acid,
Yeah.
if I got too focused,
Yeah.
or started trying to focus on something or be rational, I could get, we call it getting uptight.
Yeah,
Really, really uptight.
Yeah.
And I would learn, so I learned how to release that.
yeah. No, acid's a great teacher of energy yoga.
Yeah.
If you're an experienced tripper, because you learn how to just flow.
Yeah.
It shows you very directly.
Yeah.
But it's the same. It's exactly the same thing.
That's a good trip.
Yeah, man.
Peace.
That was one thing.
Right arm.
That was one thing that was pretty obvious. Was the same. The energy could be all jagged, like a bum trip, or it could be all curlicue and sweet and interfolding.
Yeah.
Same stuff.
Yeah. It's all kind of how you sit in it.
I guess. I don't know. It did seem that there was a kind of way that there was interaction with somehow what was being the perceiving quality, but I never could figure it out. It just seemed that, basically what it seemed like is, once I began to see that it was the same stuff, I realized I didn't have to be jagged anymore.
Yeah, you don't have
I
to.
relaxed, I guess, or whatever was relaxed. But is there, so I mean, it's almost like saying that there is something then that relates to energy, but we're not really talking about two things.
No, it's just the way it works. The way it sits with itself, the way it engages itself. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I can't say what that is. I'm just trying to indicate it euphemistically, but nonetheless, it seems to be kind of participatory. And I mean, this whole yoga is essentially learning or exploring this very opportunity of discovering that there's the various ways to be with your experience. You can be with your experience in terms of holding it and framing it and figuring it out and hoping and denying and being afraid and all these things, which is a kind of just not like that, just thinking about it. Or you can be with it just like sort of openness and let it flow and let it take care of itself, and kind of an integrative, more fluid kind of a thing. Again, to say precisely what that is, it can't be done. But you can't say precisely what anything is, so ultimately, of course, it's no surprise. But nonetheless, it presents itself as if it's participatory, as if to some degree you can kind of be with it and kind of steer that or participate with it through these modes to various degrees and what have you. And that's the whole point of what I'm calling this yoga, is taking advantage of that loophole. That so noticing is discovering that you can be with your experience without holding it to be anything, which reveals this released mode, in terms of what we're talking about now, as opposed to being with your energy, being with your experience as you know what it is, you're relating to it, you like it or you don't like it. I mean, it's part of your agenda, part of your whole worldview, which we're all very familiar with. But that whole mode of being with experience in that way turns out to be what causes, any and all spiritual problems, to the extent there seem to be such things. And so this is just basically flirting with that sort of loophole, that possibility, that opportunity of that to some extent there's a choice, or it's almost a skill one can learn, or a discernment one can develop of noticing and taking advantage of the opportunity of being with experience more nakedly, more openly, more inclusively, let's say. And whether it's something you do or not is splitting hairs. It's irrelevant. So what I say is, don't worry about whether or not you can do it. Just do it anyway. I have no control. I can't do. I don't do anything. I'm not the doer. Don't let that stop you from doing it. That may or may not be philosophically sound, but we're not talking philosophy here. We're talking yoga.
Yeah, yoga.
This is rock and roll. Don't kid it.
It seems like so many things are sort of outside your immediate focus. And I'm looking at this immediate focus here, but I see all this stuff going on here, and it's so strange how that's there, but it's not really, I know you're there, and I can kind of see a feature here and there, but it's really strange like that.
Yeah.
How many things just in your, I mean, I can look at the back of that chair and it can look like it's moving, but I don't even have to do that. I can just like look at my normal focus and then look just outside my focus, and it's
Yeah.
it's all background.
Yeah.
And even my body is sort of background. I mean, I'm not feeling my body all the time. It's just sort of a background that's there.
Yeah, there's this interest, this focus that just sort of drifts around, floats in and out of different perspectives. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And also the focus is a continuum. So it's not like this anything is in focus and anything is out of focus. It's just the degrees of being in focus and degrees of being out of focus, and it's sort of a gradation,
Yeah.
an absolute continuum, and things present very, very differently. You know, the lesser they are in focus or the more they are in focus.
Yeah, it's really strange.
It is very strange. It's very strange.
Also, it's like, looking far out, focusing and looking far out is different than sort of seeing what's on the sides unfocused.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. It's all.
And then you kind of like it fade out, like I won't go to sleep for a minute, I sort of fade out, and then it all sorts of fades out.
Yeah.
And it's just constant.
Yeah, it's just noticing the amazing fluidity and multidimensionality of the way this presents.
Right.
I'm mulling something over here. And it's the notion that focus and out of focus, and I can't find it because it's all permeating presence, if you will.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a word for it, but that never goes out of focus or in focus.
No. Yeah, what's in focus is just as present as what's out of focus, and vice versa. Presence is absolutely constant.
Right. So that, to me, it doesn't seem like anything's out of focus.
No, it's not. Well, yeah.
Or in focus, per se.
Yeah. Well, it all depends on how you qualify.
Right.
I mean, this
But
whole
I think if
phenomenon.
if you're speaking about experiencing, then you can use the words focus and out of focus.
The whole
But then-
phenomena of focus and parafocus, again, is completely unresolvable and seems very self-evident and obvious, if you look at it superficially, like anything. But again, when you look closely, like anything, you discover, wait a minute, what is this? How can this happen? How can that work? And you can't find an answer. It's befuddling. It's dizzying. It happens so effortlessly and spontaneously, and we take it so much for granted. But if you look at it very closely, it's like, wait a minute, what's really going on here?
Actually, so in this mulling, I was also trying to see the focus and out of focus, trying to relate to what was being said.
Sure.
And I thought, well, that actually distracts attention, if you will, from presence, but only if you think about it. If you don't think about it, then, the thinking is also presence. Well, see, that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, you can't pin it down.
I can't see how it could be in or out of focus.
Again, but that's another aspect of focus. You can focus on presence. And again, this isn't talking about focus within a sensory field, but you can focus on presence, or you can not focus on presence. And then presence itself, as a quality, recedes in seeming immediacy, but
Okay.
it doesn't actually go
Doesn't
anywhere.
go anywhere.
Of course, no, but nothing. That's that point you discover. Even though if this focus is moving around with wild fluidity, nothing actually comes and goes. It's just the presentation seems to assume different perspectives and so whatever, right? I mean, you can't qualify it because you look at it closely and it just gets weirder and weirder. But everything's like that. You look at everything and it gets weirder and weirder, and then you find transcendence. You discover, wow, no wonder none of this makes any sense whatsoever. It's unresolvable whatsoever because it's completely transcendental. Welcome to heaven. And it's Easter. And here you are bodily transported into heaven.
So it's also the 70th anniversary of the first dose of LSD being taken.
Is that
Wow.
right?
Of the
All
what?
right.
First dose of LSD taken?
Yes.
This very day, historic
very day.
calendar day.
Dr. Hoffman took some
Oh,
LSD and
oh, yeah.
rode his bicycle home and got stoned out of his brain.
Yeah, that's right.
It was sloppy lab work. It wasn't clean enough. He had some on his hands, and he.
No, he took it intentionally.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah.
What a guy! The first
He
trip.
didn't know what he was doing.
Well, of course.
Daring to do.
And after he took it, he didn't know what he was doing. He still.
Yeah. Well, he was enjoying it, hopefully.
All right.
Okay, so here's another thing.
Bring it.
You keep saying, this is just so weird. And I keep noticing that what's weird is all the storytelling and the focus and not the focus
Right.
and this and the that. And I'm thinking, no, if you go into it well enough, you realize that what's really weird is the status, social status, whatever consensus, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what's weird.
Right.
Because its transcendental presence is not weird. It's
No.
just, it is.
It's real. It's normal.
It's the only
It's
thing that's real.
yeah. It is.
It's constant, if you will.
But it's weird. It's weird.
That it can do that.
It's no. It's
Oh,
weird.
that happens.
Well, that's weird. But it's also weird from the point of view of consensus. Some kind of
Oh,
consensus reality.
It seems
In other
weird
words-
from
in other words,
that.
yeah.
But
What
there
this
is no that.
the way this turns out to be is astounding from the point of view of so-called human normalcy.
Consensus reality, right. But consensus reality.
No, it's a fiction, of course,
Right. No.
and that's the point.
It's pretty nifty trick, though.
Mhm.
It's like pulling a bunny out of a hat.
Nifty tricks is its stocking
And
trade.
it's Easter! So it's an Easter hat. I like it. All right, I'll keep it. We'll call this weird.
Online at the moment, we have 13 viewers, according to
Yeah.
Safari. Hello, online friends. 13 of you out there.
13 souls. Ready for Georgia is on. Yeah.
Happy LSD anniversary. And happy Easter.
Well, they're saying that today is 420. It's 420 and it's Easter and there's some
It's
sort of
it's
stoner-
420 and it's
some
Easter
stoner
and it's
sort of
the LSD.
celebration,
Boy,
everybody
this is
gets
like
stoned.
the harmonic convergence or something.
420.
I mean, God, somebody write a book.
He said that there was a priest who was
Smoking marijuana.
It's a euphemism for pot. It's slang for pot.
Oh!
So there was a priest who was writing a sermon about the benefits of 420 in order to get parishioners to come to church today.
What does 420 stand for? I can never remember.
No. What does it even mean? What does that mean?
I don't think it was ever determined. definitively. A lot of theories.
Okay.
Just to,
Anyway, it's code for pot.
Okay.
Do you want to turn the light on next to you? We can disappear.
Works. I have a really funny looking face. But then who doesn't, I guess, right?
That, look around for a minute.
Yeah, just look around.
You only just noticed?
If you just you look at noses and nothing else.
No, you should not think of
all
it.
noses are so different. You say, oh, we all got a whole nose with them. Ah, they're different. Can you also see the chat comments?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, because, yeah, when you start looking at them, that's when it's sort of funny. You're sort of squinting. Right. Oh, see, now I wrote that, and it's not showing up on here.
Seems like everything is so layered with implications. I mean, it's sort of like a picture painted and over-painted.
Infinite.
So if your mind just moves around, you sort of like, everywhere you look, there's an implication.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's never not an implication.
Yeah, it's like fractal, infinite implications just constantly cascading out from anything and you know, on a totally dynamic basis, just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the inherent intelligence. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
there's nothing that's meaningless. Everything is just pregnant with implications and meanings and, you know, seductions, suggestions,
Yeah.
and just, you know, associations, and just endlessly.
Yeah.
Endlessly. Literally, it's like a fractal mandala. It's just infinite. It's just continually exploding everywhere.
Yeah, it was effortless to make a story or something.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes you can, like sometimes I've woken up in the morning and I've looked at something and I don't even recognize what it is. And that's always interesting to me. It's like, hey, I don't know what that is. And
yeah, it's fun when that happens.
yeah, you kind of like hold it for a while. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to wait until it
Turns into something.
yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's fun when it happens because you get a clear display of the interpretive framework mechanism. When that's absent, it's just naked experience. It's just an experiential textural presence, a shape or a color or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then the you know the mind catches up and oh, that's a such and such.
Yeah, right. I remember when I was a little kid, sometimes I'd imagine that I was sleeping the other way in the bed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of move it around slowly, you know. Okay, I like this. I kind of like this. Okay, now I'm opposite way in the bed.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, this feels perfect, you know. Then you open your eyes and go, woo!
Yeah.
Trippy kid.
You gotta do something. You know?
Yes, right. Can't do it all.
Life's always been a spiritual soul.
Yes.
Right.
It's been a yogi for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Always trying new directions.
Yeah, right.
I can't tell anymore what direct experience is.
Nothing but. No wonder you can't tell.
I used to think I knew, but
No.
I can't tell.
No. Feeling's okay. Well, I mean, this is the whole yoga is a trick, you know. It's a bait and switch because, you know, you look for direct experience, and then you find direct experience, and it's so amazing. And then and the more familiar you get with direct experience, you discover there's nothing but, and there never was anything but.
Yeah.
So what happened? What was all this about?
It's not a bad trick, though.
Well, yeah, no, it's a great trick. It's a great trick. It's the great trick.
I mean, I don't mind so much getting conned that way.
No, it's a good con.
Direct experience, that which doesn't go away.
Well, why don't we take a little dessert break? So online people will be back in a little while, 10, 15 minutes or whenever.
Here I was thinking about watching TV. It's sort of like if I'm sitting here, it's like it's all over the place. You can't really, don't know.
Fairly open.
When you watch TV, it's sort of restful in a way because it's all like focused down to the drama that's being presented. You can feel like secure.
Yeah, maybe so. And also, when you're watching TV, it always makes sense. There's some kind of a plot, and there's some kind of a chain of events that's leading from something to something else.
Yeah, right.
Whereas this is always like, what's happening here? Whoever wrote this really, should give up drinking. But let me, okay.
Get serious again, please.
Well, don't do that.
Both those things.
No, please. You don't want to get serious. Don't look at me. Serious, sir. You're Mr. Serious Man. Okay, let's see what this guy is like. Oh, wow.
Did you find a place? Oh, my house first. Oh, is it?
He's sitting at attention.
No, he's really part of the group. He's on our level.
He's got to sit on his lap.
Oh, wait.
Right here. Yeah, right.
He's a lot of people.
Oh, just pick him up and put him in the lap. Don't even mush you around.
Laughing. Oh, wow. Yes.
like those videos of dogs that are totally cowed by the cats that
Nice
sit on
dog.
their
That Shelley Berman thing when he the dog across the room at a cocktail party and he was hearing about it the next day. He was like, what? I think the dog? Maybe just to get the conversation back to
Off canine topics.
Yeah. When I was at the retreat, I just was noticing all the time. It was so easy. And now I'm back.
He really wanted that chair.
You can't let him in when he laughs. You have to face him down.
I am bigger than him.
Exactly, that's right. Exactly. And, sometimes I'm noticing, and other times I look at things and they just bounce back at me. They don't,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get, they don't open up.
Right, sure. I understand. But this is the whole point of this stuff is you have to find self-sufficiency. I mean, if you're in a situation like a retreat or a meeting like this or something, then it may be easy to do. But the idea isn't to get dependent upon that. The idea is to discover, the bedrock of your own nature. But the fact that you have noticing in your life at all from time to time is all that you need. And if you reflect, you'll probably notice, and you'll probably continue to notice that noticing will tend to increase and get easier and easier and deeper just as time goes on.
It seemed like there's something left. It's like, no, we need a little more dicking around first. Like, oh, all right.
Forgetting seems to be a real interesting part of the picture too. It just seems to forgetting just seems to happen, and then you're just like, what was the concern of it? It's just not there.
Which concern?
Any particular one. Any particular one.
You mean forgetting something that was bugging you?
Bugging you or thinking, like in my case, thinking I had to realize some particular thing that I hadn't imagined or connecting with some sense of the experience that I might have had along the way. I mean, almost anything like that. But just even on a very subtle level too, just like forgetting itself seems to be a kind of part of how this moves.
Absolutely.
I like it.
You like forgetting?
Yeah.
Good to acquire a taste for it at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We're going with the flow for this.
Three.
Good strategy there.
Good time.
What was it you were talking about?
So it's kind of like with each forgetting, things are a little nicer on the other side somehow. They're just less complicated, less weird.
In a way, to go back to what Nancy brought up, in a way, noticing is a trick, because noticing is not actually any different than regular experience. And so noticing is kind of like a hypnotic trick to get you to notice regular experience. And then you can think you're doing it, and then you can think you're not doing it, and then you can think you're doing it, and then you can think you're not doing it. But ultimately, eventually, of course, you get wise, and you get, wait a minute, am I noticing or am I not noticing? What's the difference?
To me, it's like, besides being frustrating, it's interesting, like, a different flavor of experience, of feeling like something has depth versus that it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or that something else doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out what's blocking or what's going on. Is it thought, or when I look for a thought that's making something like reflective,
Right.
I don't find it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes thoughts are really sneaky, like
They
you
are.
think you're not thinking at all, and then you realize that there's way over here, there's like a little bitty thought.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is weird. It is weird. And also, you can notice that it's not really an either or whether things seem to be open or not. It's kind of a gradation, and they can seem to have a vitality, a dynamism just in the moment too, from moment to moment. So it's not, like you're on one side or the other side of the line definitively. It's more like it's always kind of, various degrees of that drifting in and out.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like when things do open up, it's because you've managed to come at it from a different part.
Sure, yeah. And it's good to play with that stuff because it's good to have that facility to know that you can open it or go to the openness. Shows you that is there, that is always there. Whether or not you're actually hanging out there, it becomes irrelevant at that point. But you get that, that's one way to being with this. You can be with this like that, or you can be with this much more, let's say called normal human mode, or purposefully oriented, or goal oriented, or what have you, right? And it's actually not really any different. The point isn't to leave the human mode and to find the specialness. The point is to discover that even the human mode is the specialness. So you're Teflon. You can go anywhere, be with your experience any which way, and it's all, it's a no-lose situation. It's like knowing that there's no back wall, there's no containment. So even if like most of the time I'm in my experience sort of dully and stupidly and, grappling with whatever I'm focusing on. But it's always in a context in the back. There's no back door, so if I let myself, I can just sort of go out at any time, and that's always there. It's always because there's no containment, there's no enclosure, there's no actual limitation. So even if I'm just with things, just like a stupid human, which I happen to be, it's a continuum to being able to absolutely openly and amazingly and spectacularly. It's like being in a room like this with a nice view. At any moment you can turn around and go, wow, yeah, that's great. And then you can come right back to what's in front of you around the table. And it's not an either or at that point. It's just, that's there. That's part of it. And the openness and the noticing and the amazing, transcendental nature is just, it's part of it. It's here. But it's not like you need to shut down normalcy and go to, tripping 24/7 kind of thing.
And any back wall that appears to be there is actually illusory.
Yeah.
There's no actual back wall.
Yeah, and you get a palpable sense of this. You get a sense of this,
That's a good one.
openness.
No back wall.
Well, try and find if your
No back wall.
try and find if your experience is taking place in a room. Is your mind in a room, in a space? Does it have a bottom? Does it have a back?
Yeah.
Does it have an edge, a point where it stops?
I thought
thought you said when we went on that walk, you said to me that Joey and David, I guess we brought David with us too, that your experience since the retreat was different, that you were more...
It is, but, I think I'm approaching it like a fanatical Lobo player. Okay, now I've learned this, now I need to practice it.
Well, you are a fanatical Lobo player, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't have to approach it that way.
You don't have to, but on the other hand, if you do, that's cool too. Anything goes.
Well, you're saying, you don't have to be there 24/7, which would be my normal, but would be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I have to all the time now.
Yeah. But just having that in your life at all, it establishes itself more and more self-verifyingly as just an actuality. And then it's available, it's available experience. I suppose some people like to hang out there most of the time. Some people sort of become meditators or sannyasins or, move under a bridge or, wear a loincloth. But you don't have to. You don't have to, but that perspective is always available, And you kind of find your own comfort zone in terms of your temperament of how sort of goal-oriented functionality you are with being with things, or how much you sort of let yourself go into the spacing out kind of thing. Because everyone has a different nature, everyone has a different sort of center of gravity. The sort of not the naive fantasy that we all have as spiritual beginners is, I'm going to leave this and shut it down and go to the great mode where everything's wonderful and beautiful and and it's not, that's an oversimplification. It's not actually like that. You don't need to, it's not an either or. It's not like an escapist thing where I have to escape this horror and go to the goodness. You discover, well, no, the goodness is here and there's no horror here. And at that point, it's sort of anything goes, and you just sort of are free. You're free to be with it in any mode, and there's nothing lost by being with it in any mode, and there's nothing gained by being with it in any other mode. You don't gain anything from the openness, and you don't lose anything from, being in a hardcore focus. And you get a sense of that. You get a really, self-verifying certainty of that just through experience, through exposure. And at that point, it's just comfortable. It's easy. You can be inside or be outside. You can be resting, or you can be working. You can be this, you can be that, and it's all good. Or it's all weird, which is good.
You like weird.
It's strange. It's only weird when you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, you can see how weird it is. It's like I was saying, you kind of go. It's like if you look and see, how weird is this? And you look closely, it's like, oh Jesus, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is completely nuts. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Then you go back and watch TV.
I find very often the weird is my interpretation of somebody else.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is weird, but
this may be weird, but you're really weird. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yes, that's what I meant.
I'm nuts, but you guys are all stark raving mad.
And that is saying something, because you're really nuts.
Right.
That's what he's talking about.
Well, it takes one to know one.
What did they do with the bat?
I know, really. Yeah, I know, right? What happened? Where'd the floor go?
There's a warehouse off somewhere.
Yeah, right. They cart him off and store him somewhere.
I was thinking this week that, I sort of see how it is a sort of practice too.
Sure.
Because I notice that when I'm in a certain setting that I would have been in the past, where I would have been disinterested and I would have been spacing out, that I'm now completely, absorbed by extraneous colors and, pieces of wall and light bulbs, were endlessly interesting. And I can really feel how that is real versus, what I used to do, which was create all the stuff in my head that was, not unreal, but still not as present.
Right.
So it's just or the texture thing, or that I automatically do, which is very different from what I have done in the past.
Yeah.
So it is showing up somewhat like a practice.
Well, it is a genuine practice, and what the practice actually consists of is sensitivity training. You're training yourself to be more sensitive to what's actually present. So instead of sort of being numb to it and then needing to look for something interesting, and so you manufacture in your imagination, you discover by letting yourself to be sensitive to how amazing what's actually present is, and just in terms of the richness of experience in arbitrary dimensions, it's just incredibly rich. And as your sensitivity opens to that, or let's say gets finer, the threshold gets more and more low, then you're always in this fascinating and interesting and entertaining and luscious field of all of these experiential qualities. And so it's a direct engagement. You're with this. You don't need to go away from it to find something interesting or distracting or whatever. This is itself so interesting. It draws you to it. And it's definitely a cultivated, or at least it's a kind of a feedback cycle of increasing sensitivity to you could say appreciation or engagement with the experiential qualities that are actually present.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it is interesting for me to wonder what produced the other practice, the disembodiment, or, I could just easily have had this as a practice, or, why, I mean.
Well, that's getting into the vagaries of psychology, essentially.
Yeah.
That's a morass.
But I mean, in some senses, there has been a change to what caused that, because I'm now not doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, whatever causes it, you discover that it's no longer necessary. I mean, I think, like from the psychological perspective, a lot of this sort of disembodiment or orienting to imagination is a reaction to childhood weirdness, and now as adults and relatively unencumbered from that kind of stuff, that the circumstances, the stimulus that motivated that whole orientation is not so immediately present, and so you don't have to maintain the habit of being with your experience that way, which may have seemed relatively appropriate at the time, but then you can sort of come out from hiding because the boogeyman's gone or whatever, right?
It was an interesting discussion we had on karma last week too.
Yeah.
How, that it doesn't really exist other than when it does, for whatever reason, and that it doesn't mean anything even when it does appear to be there.
Yeah. Well, karma's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And again, all of that follows directly just from, it's not a theory that one has to learn or something. It just becomes more and more self-evident when you're with what experience is and you discover how amazingly multidimensional it is. Then the sort of locked-in qualities that karma can seem to have just sort of
intrinsically.
They lose their clout. It loses its coherence.
I'm noticing that even when I don't feel particularly sensitive, I guess, when it's all rather dull or whatever, it doesn't seem to be so much of a problem because there's this kind of sweetness that's there too, which seems like okay, fine.
Right. Well, exactly. As you become more and more of an advanced yogi, that just becomes a background certainty, and you don't need to be explicit with it. You don't need to prove it to yourself or even get reminders. It's just a known, it's a given, and so it's there, and then you're basically free to be with it any way you want. I mean, I'm that way, like I said earlier. I'm most of the time in my experience, I'm just sort of stupid and dull and absorbed in whatever absurd task I happen to be doing at the moment.
True.
And yet I feel great. I mean, it just feels lovely. It's like, okay, cool. I'm sitting here mindlessly surfing the internet, and it's bliss. Yeah, total wasting time, and I'm really into it, and I'm into the stupidity of it, and the whole thing is like, it's like watching TV, Well, we watch these series in the evenings most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not particularly, they're interesting, but they're not like high art or anything. And we're just sitting there, staring at the TV for 2 hours. It's great, it's totally great.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, because it doesn't need to not be that, because there's no problem there. Because that is in this amazing context. And that becomes more and more of a felt sense.
Cloud or something. I mean, watching TV. I mean,
sure.
No more.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Don't call it the TV for nothing.
Well, it's interesting because before we had TV, there were other things.
Of course.
Chess or board games. Radio.
Alcohol.
The radio.
Yeah, alcohol. There were a lot of things.
Yeah.
The TV is a particularly interesting medium because, I mean,
Oh, it's fascinating.
so total. I mean,
Sure.
radio is a little bit too direct, but TV is really. How is the radio direct?
Well,
Well, radio, it's.
I think it's the tubes. I think it's the tubes that do. Oh, they don't have tubes anymore. So.
I think it's more of a mind blower than radio. Because it involves your eyes and your hearing, and you don't even notice your sense of smell or touch or anything while you're watching.
It's a mini experience. It simulates the whole sensorium.
But I remember clearly enough, before we had a television, listening to radio shows. And yes, and I would be listening, but my imagination, I had my own tube up there
like reading.
with video.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
they really
or
went
reading.
wild.
I could read for hours, and I'm totally gone. The room's disappeared, I've disappeared, so.
Yeah.
I like reading.
See, that's real.
Absolutely.
That's here. That's present.
That's present.
Whatever.
Yeah. I don't know, but the shows we watch are particularly clever and intelligent, okay?
I mean, it does sort of come back to there really isn't a point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but it's really proving that definitively. It's
Right,
discovering that fact very powerfully.
Yes,
yourself,
yes.
right.
And it sounds, you can
In
say it as
every
a joke.
dimension, in every
Yeah. There is no preferred perspective.
Right.
There's no there's no good or bad way of being with this. It's all the same.
Yeah,
So you can't lose.
right.
There's no downside. There's no failing. There's no, and that's powerful. I mean, that's really strong. If you really see it, all of a sudden you're off the hook. You can be any old way you happen to be. Is as good as you can. As good as any other way you happen to be.
Yeah,
So why get your knickers in a twist?
right. Well, but that's where karma comes in. I mean, having, you tell yourself that there is a point, that
Right, exactly.
that's really all that's going on there.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly, and that's what bondage is. It constitutes bondage. Having that carrot on a string. The grass is greener somewhere. I'm going to find it.
Like one kind of infinity equals every other kind of infinity.
Exactly so. That's the formula. When you see that, it's, well, whatever. Yeah.
And then there's the little butt machine, you know.
The who?
You know, the butt.
But
But.
But,
But
yeah.
that, but this is the insanity, you know, the insanity which is ever present, you know,
Yeah.
trying to,
Annoy you? Trying to annoy you.
and even that becomes irrelevant. You don't even need to defend against that. It's like, okay, I'm nuts. You know, I go into my insanity and like,
Right.
yeah, so what? What's new?
Yeah.
But you don't go anywhere that's worse than anywhere else, so what difference does it make?
Well, you know, a real trick for that is recognizing that everything passes. And so even if you're in a weird moment or you feel like you're not noticing, it'll pass. A moment will come when you are noticing. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Sure, of course.
And even the moment you see that, you're noticing. So.
But it's just another aspect of the obvious infinity of conditions. You know, conditions are actually infinite in every way. There's no way in which they are limited and finite. So, where are you? What's happening?
Did you just have another drink, baby?
It's a bottomless thermos.
Heavy drinker.
Heavy drinker.
It's strange. You can feel like you can go into the back,
Yeah.
and it's just the same as sort of becoming aware in deep sleep.
Yeah. Exactly so.
It's the same thing. It's really weird. I didn't know it was that close.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Because you're not, you're there.
Yeah.
But you're not.
Anywhere.
You're not defined in any way. It's really odd.
Yeah, it is. It's right.
That you could go back.
Yeah, there's complete access to all modes. All modes are right here, right now.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of disentangling the obsessive focus from any particular mode in order to have relative freedom to be in other modes, wherever you happen to be, whatever sort of apparent state happens to be dominant in your experience.
Yeah.
You can experience deep sleep or experience a dream from the waking condition very easily simply by, it's changing your focus, so to speak, to that kind of a resonance.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Because I was thinking, of late I've been thinking of, like how did this beingness get here? That's really amazing. So no matter what I'm thinking about personally in my life, like this beingness is here, which is a real miracle. But then all of a sudden, there's no back, and you can go into that too. That's really, it's like sort of like, wow, you can go. Never thought of that.
Yeah. Slip out the back, Jack.
I like that a lot.
Use the back door.
It's nice and quiet.
Yeah, it's lovely. Very peaceful.
Spacious.
Yeah, I can sort of get like that, but just by saying quick, it's like a little mantra where, and,
for sure.
I'll try real hard to find out.
Yeah, no, look at that. Where am I? All of a sudden it's like, oh, fuck. Wait a minute, hold the phone. I'm here, but where's here?
Yeah, I used to make my kids, we're just this little girl, and she's 86 or anything. Like, what city and what planet? And we just go on, and then finally we just start laughing, because it's impossible. It's infinity.
Yes, it is.
That back door one, that's a good one. I'm going to try that wall.
Kids go back there.
It's like they're planning a Montreal retreat online tonight.
Yeah.
Nice.
On Pensacola.
Send me the dates and the location. I'll show up.
Great beach there. I know, great beach, and my sisters are nearby, my brothers. Pensacola. Peter Starkey says he'll come. Right, Peter?
Oh, you jet setters.
And Captain. Yeah, yeah, he's pushing his retreat from Philadelphia.
Father's talking about being smuggled back in for one of your retreats.
Yeah. Can someone smuggle me in? That didn't work. Okay, no problem. I'll smuggle you in. Put you in my duffel.
It depends who would come to an Australian retreat.
Yes. One for that.
I'd go.
Me
I'd go
too.
down there.
Me too. Okay, so that's, and you come, so that's 4 of us.
Peter, it seems like there's never a condition where you're not there.
Of course not. Yeah.
You know.
It's always this, but it always looks different. It can look like anything, but it never departs from itself. It's always just this. It's always you here.
Yeah, right. No matter what, I mean, it's never gonna, even if it's that.
No, it doesn't change whatsoever.
Can you say more about that, about it never departing from itself?
Well, what this is, it never becomes anything else. It never moves from itself, even one iota, even though it can seem to, and it can be interpreted as moving from itself, because by its very nature it can present as infinitely diversified.
Right.
And so there seems to be this, that, and the other quality, and they're so radically different than each other. It's easy to say, well, they're so different they couldn't possibly be the same, and yet they're all the same. They're all just this. They're all here. They're all, this presence, this radiant presence. I mean, to me the term radiant presence is really accurately indicates what is always here. It's always present, it's always presence, right? And it's always presents as characteristics. It's just shining forth or spinning out a whole nexus of characteristics that are unstable and just pithy and so on and so forth. And it's always exactly that. It's never not that.
Right, so it has nothing to do with the appearances.
Nothing, that's the point. Nothing, it can look like anything. It's like a dream. A dream can look like anything, but it's always just a dream. It never becomes anything other than a dream. And it never becomes more dream or less dream. It's always just full-on dream. But it can look like anything. It can look like nothing. And still just dream. And yet what dream is what this is. It's dream because a dream is present, and it presents as arbitrary, unresolvable experiential characteristics, which is always the case.
I see, yes.
And it's the case right now, it's the case when you go to sleep, it's the case when you're dreaming, it'll be the case on your deathbed, always the same. And so what this is not dependent upon what it looks like. I mean, that, in a way, that's the big revelation, because, fear and desperation and insecurity are all energized by some sense of dependency. So like, oh my God, I really have to keep a handle on this because it matters.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, if this isn't around for me, I'm screwed. That whole fantasy of dependency, and the discovery of independence. That no, what this is, which is what I am, because I can't find any other than this presence, right? So, and yet it can look like anything, but it's always it. What it is not. It doesn't gain, it's not improved, it's not damaged by what it looks like, it doesn't gain anything, it doesn't lose anything, it's always exactly, full, exactly itself.
So it's always a complete paradox.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is part of the reason why it's so hard to, it's so non-rational, because it can look like anything, but it's always itself, and that makes absolutely no sense. How do you wrap your head around that? Well, you can't. But it's self-evident that's the case. And the point of this yoga is to just discover experientially for yourself, that is the case, and explore all of its nooks and crannies and ramifications until you really get the self-verifying. Yeah, sure enough, that's how it is, no doubt about it. And then you're home. Then you don't mistake it for anything else. You don't mistake it for a condition which is problematic.
So the mistake is believing that there is a moment in time when it will depart from itself and it will actually be something other than what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that the way it is dependent upon some external condition having to be a certain way or having to not be a certain way.
Some imagined objective situation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes,
Or
essentially.
replace it with objectivity.
Yeah, well, it's the objectivity is is the guise it shows up in, but the real vector, the problematic vector, is dependency. If there were objectivity, it wouldn't matter in itself if there was no dependency on it.
Yes.
But it's the fancy of dependency. In other words, oh my God, what I am is dependent upon things being a certain way. And so then all of a sudden I have to put a lot of strategizing and fear and worry into, trying to control things, and dreading that maybe I'm going to fail in my control, and dreading that maybe things are going to change, and all of a sudden I'm a neurotic mess, which of course is what we see as human normalcy. And the discovery that all of that is just fantasy, there's no actual basis for it, is quite a load off, of course.
Until you forget again.
Yeah, if you do. But ultimately it becomes a felt sense of self-evident.
Forgetting isn't, forgetting doesn't get in the way of it either.
No, because you see that even forgetting, you don't lose anything.
Right. You sense the reality of
Yeah.
the presence.
Yeah.
But the narration is.
Well, the narration is always spitting out bullshit.
So
that's nonstop.
Exactly. So the
The insanity never goes away.
Is just to be experienced as noise.
Yeah.
Pretend it's in
Well,
Greek or
it is
something,
noise.
or another language.
It is noise. Because it doesn't apply to anything that is actually the case.
No.
There's no back wall to that either.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no meaning to any of it either.
Well, I mean, front wall.
Yeah.
Notion that-
Okay, the front wall. There's no back wall. The structure isn't going to stay up very well, is it?
So there never is a time when you'll find yourself up against the wall.
Yeah.
Very good. Backing up and backing up and backing up. Peter, you mentioned, that, a neurotic self, it's just sort of like a fantasy, but it's interesting, a couple years ago, I was having some personal problems, and I went and saw a therapist the first time maybe since college. I just haven't been to so many therapists.
Mm-hmm.
For a while it was sort of interesting, but it just seemed like she keep on trying to elicit things from my childhood, or even
Throwing gasoline on the fire.
So far away and totally fantasy, really. It didn't seem to, and I would try to, in my, inarticulate way, try to express some of my ideas about spirituality or where I was going.
Yeah.
You were going
It
to
was
the
just,
wrong
she kept on wanting to go back to, all this other stuff.
That's all she knows.
Wasn't helpful,
No.
particularly.
Yeah. Because I think that the sort of the fantasy of psychotherapy and that sort of thing is that these problems are solvable.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, you can never solve the insanity of mind, I don't think. I think that what you do is just discover its irrelevance. And then it persists, the neurotic personality will continue to churn away doing its thing, but it doesn't have any teeth. Its wheels aren't meeting the road, so nothing actually comes of it. It's just this engine spinning away.
Same fucked up leather. And,
Of course. We're all the walking wounded. I mean, no one's not the walking wounded, right?
Right.
But it turns out that that's not actually a problem. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have scars from where, places where you cut yourself or something hurt yourself in your youth, and so you got a scar, and that's a fact, but it's not a problem. It's just a given.
Yeah. That's basically what I said. I was talking to someone maybe about my problems, and I just said, well, it's not a problem.
Yeah, the problem is thinking that there's a problem.
Yeah.
Really. You know, because then again, the human normalcy is to relate in terms of your personality, to relate in terms of your history, you know, and you sort of, so it keeps getting reinforced and reified, and so it becomes a, you know, sort of a feedback loop of validating all that whole mode constantly, because people are immersed, keep themselves immersed in it all the time.
like these
But you don't have to do
sessions,
that. You don't
these
have
therapy sessions where she was constantly trying to concretize it, you know, just
Yeah.
oh, she said that, you know, and I mean, I would just, you know, and
Eventually you figured out you were wasting your money and your time, huh?
yeah, well, you know, I mean, it was helpful in some ways, but I just,
I
the
think
whole
what happens-
process was really interesting to me compared
Yeah.
to what,
Yeah.
the way I feel I'm unfolding, you know.
Yeah, sure.
I think what can be helpful, and it sort of happens, I think, by accident in a way, is that as you go through those sorts of things, as you sort of relive them, you experience presently, you experience whatever fear or, you know,
Anxiety.
whatever, and then just touching that. It seems to me like something to do with just like the most simply, just instantaneous little touch. Something just comes like that.
Yeah.
And just like comes somehow undone inside. And it may even still seem there, but it just doesn't have any.
You see it for what it is, a story of something.
Yeah, it sees itself in some way. You know, it's not like you even know anymore, any more than you did before, but it just doesn't work the same.
I don't know, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, I've known people who've gone to therapy for 30 years, you know, and they don't seem to be any better off than.
Did you represent that remark?
30 years, I mean, I don't know, but it just seems once you go through one experience and see that what you thought was a problem is not really a problem.
Yeah.
It's just like that, and any other thing that comes up,
Yeah.
hopefully, you know.
You're in the wrong business, Pam.
What? What's the wrong
You'd
business?
be set up as a therapist.
Oh, no. I mean, I could set up, you know, just give me $20,000 and we'll have a session, one session, and that's it.
Right.
Oh, you're beginning to sound like Bob
And it'll be a
Newhart.
bargain.
It's a $5 session, you get 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You don't have 10.
Stop it or I'll
It
bury
won't be
you on
10
your
years,
top.
$5,000 a year. It'll be 50,000 in one lump sum.
Yeah, right.
You're cured.
That's it.
20 minutes, you're out the door. Smile on your face.
And meanwhile, check out this website, Open Doorway. That's it for free.
But that doesn't work. There's a new website called No Back Wall.
Oh, that wall, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a picture of someone's head sort of blown off.
Oh, God. Jeez. You better erase.
You really set us off.
Yeah, really, this session.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Not with a bang, not with a whimper, but with a fond good night to one and all.
I'm glad you're a bunch of mixed metaphors there.